All right, welcome to a new episode of the Zero Technique Football Podcast. I am your co-host, Ryan Stern. Joined with me, as always, is Derek Mountain. How you doing today, Derek?
Craziness. More craziness for us to deal with today.
My God, just when you think things are starting to get better in Tennessee, they just revert back to their old ways. So join us for the new episode of the Zero Technique Football Podcast. All right, so as I said, it is a crazy time, especially down in Tennessee. We will be joined shortly by TitanInsider.com writer Terry McCormick, just to get a scoop of what's actually going on down there, see how the team is handling the actual guys who are healthy, the ones that haven't been tested positive, see what's going on, and maybe get some insight into how everything is affecting this week's game and possibly throughout the rest of the year. We're also going to be getting into some takeaways from week 4. Going to get into our picks for week 5. Got a lot of great games this weekend. And a lot of very important games for some people. So definitely make sure that we're going to take a good look at the Thursday night game with Tampa and Chicago. Got the Eagles taking on their in-state rivals with the Steelers. The Giants needing a win against the Cowboys, who need a win. And then we'll look at the Sunday night game with the Seahawks and Vikings, and the Monday night game between the Chargers and Saints. So until we are joined by Terry, let's open up with some of the biggest news over the past couple of days. And the biggest one is the coaching change and eventual general manager change in Houston. They get rid of Bill O'Brien. A lot of Texans fans rejoicing. The writing's been on the wall ever since the head scratching trade of DeAndre Hopkins over the offseason, and the 0-4 start just it triggered something that was inevitable.
Absolutely. It's not a surprise, like you said, and there are reports today that J.J. Watt had almost led a player revolt in Houston, which is not surprising either. But coming from a guy who has literally been the leader of that franchise ever since he was drafted there, that it's not something that I was expecting to see today. But again, I'm not surprised. He has completely crippled that franchise. They have no prospects in the future. I mean, they gave up 2 first-round picks for Laramie Tunsil, make him the richest offensive tackle in NFL history, and they have nobody else around that O-line to help protect Deshaun Watson. They get rid of their best player, like you just said, for a second-round pick and an aging running back in a horrible contract, David Johnson. So they're looking at a top 5, top 3 pick right now that's going to Miami. Their first pick in 2021 is going to be in the 3rd round. The young guys you get excited about are Deshaun Watson and Deshaun Watson. That's where the list starts and ends. It is – I don't know where – I mean, you can – I think there are a lot of great coaches they could go forward with in this process, a lot of great young GMs you could go forward with. But the next two years, there's not very much you can do.
Yeah, and I guess the most head-scratching move of all was the fact that they replaced Bill O'Brien with someone who was almost a clone of Bill O'Brien in Romeo Cornell. We get the Belichick coaching tree just keeps growing and growing and growing.
McDaniels is next.
Yeah, but it keeps on happening with guys who haven't had any success. Guys that are really good coordinators, but guys that have not shown any capabilities of being a successful head coach in the league. And it's funny because I like Romeo Cornell. Romeo Cornell is one of the most likable coaches in the NFL.
Coordinator.
a really, really good defensive coordinator, but he's had multiple opportunities to show that he can get the job done with having the title of head coach, and now he's being dealt one of the worst hands in all of football right now, because he's not going to be coaching past this season. He doesn't have a whole lot of talent, and there are some teams that when you have the aging guys at the top of the depth chart, you have the guys below them that are ready to take over when their time comes. Look at the running back position, and it's David Johnson and Duke Johnson. Who else? Nobody. You look at the wide receiver position, and sure, Will Fuller has a ton of upside, but the year that Will Fuller plays 16 games is the year that I'm the Pope. It's just never going to happen. You mentioned the offensive line. It's Laramie Tunsil and nobody else. On the defense, you have J.J. Watt, who, as great as he is, as great as he has been, is on the back nine of his career. His peak days have passed him up. We're not going to see the best of J.J. Watt in the future. It's already happened. There just isn't a whole lot to be excited about this team in the future, and they don't even have the draft picks to give you any sort of hope for the future. The only hope is Deshaun Watson. You're putting your hope into one player, and we've seen it time and again. It just in the NFL that just doesn't work.
No, it's just and it's frustrating as a fan seeing Deshaun Watson. He's regressed a lot this year, and that's not his fault. Like, I mean, it's a team issue, it's a franchise issue, it's a coaching issue. But we talked about it. He's going to have Romeo Cornell now, a defensive-oriented head coach. There's going to be kind of changing the guards effort to revamp this offense, at least not in 2020. There just isn't. There's no time to do it, and they don't have the makeup. They don't have the coaching staff in place to do it right now. So it's just frustrating if you're a Houston Texans fan right now.
Yeah. All right. So Terry McCormick is going to be joining us in about 10 minutes. So we'll get into all of the Titans news when he joins us then. In the meantime, week 4 takeaways. There was a lot that we learned this weekend, and a lot more we're going to learn this weekend. What was your first takeaway from week 4?
I'll just add on to the Bill O'Brien storyline. It's interesting because the writing was on the wall, but this is a guy that's accomplished. I mean, he did win 4 AFC South titles in his tenure, and given they had the best talent in that division in that time. He never overachieved. I do think he underachieved at times, but there are better coaches and there are worse coaches than Bill O'Brien in the NFL. It's his GM tenure that expedited this process. But when you see a guy like that get fired after this start, I think I almost think the floodgates are open now. Why is Adam Gase still employed, other than the fact that they're actively tanking? Why is Matt Patricia, who's 10-25-1 in his tenure, when Jim Caldwell in his 4 years at Detroit won 11 games, 7 games, 9 games, 9 games, and that was a guy who made the playoffs twice in those 4 years. Matt Patricia hasn't even sniffed anything close to the playoffs, and they're starting 1-3, and they're losing the exact same way they're losing the exact same way they lost last year. Building up a double-digit point lead, and they can't hold a lead. They crumble under pressure. Doug Marrone, Dan Quinn, like, when the clock is ticking now, and I don't really expect things to change, but I could see all 4 of those guys being fired in season now that Bill O'Brien got fired.
Yeah, it's really not pretty. They already announced earlier tonight that Romeo Cornell will not be the the head coach moving forward, and also the guy that's going to be the interim GM will not be the GM going forward. He will go back to his old role. I mean, that is Jack Easterby. He's going to be the interim GM. He's going to go back to his old role in the front office at the end of the year. I guess they're just going to roll. And to be honest, if I'm this is a great segue. If I'm a Miami Dolphins fan, I'm loving this because all of this turmoil, all of this bad play, all of this that's going on in Houston is only going to make their potential pick, which it belongs to the Dolphins next year, it's going to make it that much better. And so my first takeaway is that even though they're sitting at 1-3, the Miami Dolphins are a lot better than most people are giving them credit for. And I've seen posts about, is Brian Flores on the hot seat? Are you kidding me? Brian Flores won 5 games last year with a team that a lot of people predicted to go winless. Won 5 games with that team with a really young and not ready for the NFL roster, and Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm. He won 5 games with them. This year, he was week 1. They were 5 minutes left in the game, only down 3 to the Patriots. They were winning in the fourth quarter against the Buffalo Bills week 2. Week 3, they come out and destroy Jacksonville, who many people, including both of us, picked to win that game. And then this past week, they're tooth and nail with the Seattle Seahawks the entire game. Their schedule is going to lighten up. They still haven't played the Jets, and they still get them twice. So, I mean, we all know, and now it's the Joe Flacco-led New York Jets until Sam Darnold comes back. But this is a team that they're primed to make that run. And it's funny that it's almost coinciding with I think the writing's on the wall that Tua's going to be taking over pretty soon. They had to make an announcement this week that Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to be the quarterback against San Francisco. It's a tough matchup. Again, San Francisco is still without some of their stars, but they're still playing pretty well on defense as a whole. I think the writing's on the wall. I would not be surprised if Tua Tagovailoa takes over week 6, and then this becomes a totally different team. The entire hopes of the franchise are resting in this kid who is coming off one of the most major hip surgeries there's been since Bo Jackson in terms of football. So how they're able to respond when they do make the eventual move to Tua is going to really set the tone for what the rest of the season is going to be. But again, like I said, I think this is a really good team. The defense, I think, has played really good football, especially the last 2 weeks. They held the Seahawks, who most people, and again, you're going to look at the final score and say, well, look at Seattle did score points. Yeah, they scored a couple touchdowns in the final 6 minutes of the game. When you're looking at the game as a whole, this game was within a touchdown the entire afternoon. And that was a Seattle offense that had just been scoring at will over anybody in the league. So my first takeaway from week 4 was that the Miami Dolphins are a pretty good team.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, they have a -3 point differential. They're 1-3, but they're not a 1-3 football team. I totally agree with you. I think that they have a lot of things going in the right direction for them. And this looks like a Patriots defense to me. Flores being an understudy of Bill Belichick. They put a premier at the cornerback position. They signed Byron Jones, who hasn't even played for the first 3 games, and he played against Seattle with a torn groin. He's not even 100%. They get Xavier Howard back. He gets an interception. They draft Noah Igabagane out of Auburn. They have all these big, long, athletic corners that can play man, and they can man up a team like Seattle. And then at the edge, they have guys like Shaq Lawson, Kyle Van Noy, these versatile guys that can drop into coverage, come off the edge, pressure the quarterback, Christian Wilkins in the middle. They got some really attractive pieces, and now they're going to get a top 10 pick from Houston. It's a top 5 pick right now. I expect it to be closer to 10 probably by the end of the year. And then their own first-round pick. I don't expect them to be a playoff team. I think they could maybe be in the mix for longer than we think, but they're going to get 2 picks in the top half of the draft to build around Tua. I mean, Austin Jackson's playing great football. He's a 20-year-old rookie, but he's looked a lot sharper than we thought he would. I mean, if you had another O-lineman to the mix and maybe a weapon for Tua or however they want to go, but this is a bright future for this team.
Yeah. What was your second takeaway?
Dwayne Haskins today. I wasn't that surprised because, I mean, there were rumors on Twitter after the game that Ron Rivera had thought about benching Haskins after the first 4 drives. It was punt, fumble, punt, missed field goal. They weren't moving the ball, and the offense is just very limited with Haskins. It's extremely conservative. Now, how much does that have to do with the surrounding talent? Definitely a factor. I mean, it's Terry McLaurin, it's Antonio Gibson, who played his best game of his young career so far last Sunday, but not much else after that. O-line's a mess. They don't even have their best lineman, Brandon Scherf. But also, you look at that situation. They put in Kyle Allen, who was the backup in Carolina last year with Rivera. He knows that system with Scott Turner. It's not a sexy pick. The guy turns the ball over a lot. But look, they don't like Haskins. Rivera does not like Haskins. He hasn't given them a reason to like him. And not that they're actively tanking, but they're picking a quarterback in the first round next year. They're going to pick Trey Lance or Justin Fields. That's how I look at it. And Haskins just isn't their guy. I didn't really think he was a first-round talent. He had a bunch of surrounding talent at Ohio State against the Big Ten. He's not fast. He's not mobile. He's not the smartest quarterback. He doesn't have the ability to throw the ball down the field like some other guys that are coming out that you see, like a Herbert, like a Burrow. Is that a fair comparison? Maybe not, but he's a first-round pick. And he really hasn't had those glimpses, at least like a Daniel Jones who struggled, but you see the glimpses of what he can be. You haven't really seen that with Dwayne Haskins. So I wasn't that surprised by it, but he's not even dressing this weekend. It's Kyle Allen, Alex Smith is a backup, and Haskins won't even be active.
Yeah, and this is this you look at the box score and you say, well, why is Dwayne Haskins being benched? Because I mean, he went 32 of 45, 314 yards against the Baltimore Ravens, and you say, well, why is he being benched? Well, because you need to watch the entire game, not just look at the box score. His average depth of target was 4 yards. He was helped out a lot by his teammates extending the play after he had a little dump off.
I think Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson are both top 5 in YAC within their positions.
Yep. I mean, I've said it since the beginning of the season. I didn't think Dwayne Haskins was going to make it throughout the entire season as the starting quarterback. I knew that they were going to eventually move on. The writing was on the wall in training camp that Rivera didn't like Haskins, and now it's all come to a head. But we are pleased to welcome in Terry McCormick, TitanInsider.com, so we can discuss a little bit about what's going on down in Tennessee. Terry, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so, I mean, we can't really beat around the bush. There's now, I think it's 20? Is it now up to 20 players or 22?
22 people altogether, 12 players, 10 members of the staff.
Yeah, so they had hoped that they were going to be able to get into the facility today. Unfortunately, there were 2 more positive tests. Now they're going to have to wait 2 more consecutive days before they're able to get into the facility, which means the earliest is going to be on Saturday. What sort of jeopardy is this weekend's game now going to be based on that alone?
Well, obviously, the Titans have already used the one bye week that they had because they postponed last week's game against the Steelers and moved that to week 7, which was supposed to be the Titans' bye. And so, if they cannot play this game against Buffalo on Sunday, it's going to have to be moved to the end of the season or possibly canceled.
Terry, so just navigating this whole situation, there's been a lot of ambiguity, kind of NFL. Obviously, we haven't been through this before, making up rules as we go almost. Have you talked to any personnel, players, coaches that are almost frustrated with this gray area and proceeding with this rare circumstance?
Well, I think everybody is, here is a little agitated with it. You see some of the players' tweets and what they say about the whole situation, especially the positive tests that wouldn't allow them back in the building today. There's some guys who are upset about it. And Mike Vrabel's taking the high road in terms of what he's saying and not saying. He's being very ambiguous about it. We should have access to him again tomorrow to kind of get an update from him on this. So I think there's a lot of balls in the air right now in regards to whether this game is going to be played and what the status, what the Titans will look like if they are able to play.
Do you know how Mike Vrabel has been in communication with the guys that have not tested positive, the guys that are healthy, about making sure that they are staying focused on the task at hand in case they are playing a game this weekend? And I have a feeling that if they do, it's probably going to be pushed to either a Monday or a Tuesday. But how is Vrabel handling the players that haven't tested positive?
Well, they obviously try to have Zoom meetings and whatnot to try to get as prepared as they can. They've got a number of players on the practice squad, and he told us in the access that we had to him on Tuesday via Zoom that number of players that are on the practice squad would be brought up if indeed they're able to play in this game. One of the interesting aspects of it, too, is their long snapper, Bo Brinkley, was one of the first players infected with the COVID-19. And as you guys know, long snapping is a very peculiar skill not possessed by a lot of NFL players. So they are going to have to go outside the building and find a long snapper if they are to play against the Bills this weekend.
Looking forward, there was a lot of speculation in the Twitter world, and for right now, speculation, but is it realistic that this team faces further punishment? Do they face suspensions, fines, loss of draft picks, draft compensation? Have you heard anything to that extent?
Nothing concrete in terms of penalties and things like that, but I did confirm, and I know for a fact that the team held a workout with certain players at a local high school in Nashville, a private high school in Nashville, Montgomery Bell Academy, last week. That was last Wednesday, one day before the facility was shut down by the league due to the COVID protocols. And then I asked Mike Vrabel in the conference call that we had with him on Thursday, and Thursday was the game was the day that the game against the Steelers was postponed. So with that, and the game being postponed, I asked him, if they were allowed to have any outside meetings or anything like that where players could gather on their own. And he said that had been strongly discouraged, and they told them not to. Well, the fact of the matter is that it already happened. So I guess the question is, what did the Titans know and when did they know it? And that is certainly up for debate, and that's going to be probably something they're going to have to take up with the NFL. Were they already told not to gather before they gathered on Wednesday and they willfully disobeyed, or did the NFL not make that clear until after they had the Wednesday gathering? If the former's the case, then they deserve a severe punishment from the league. If the latter's the case, then the rub to me is on the NFL, because it's not a mandate. It's the fact that even though it was discouraged, the Titans players assumed the risk. And the reason that they assumed the risk was because at the time, as far as they knew on Wednesday, they still had a game scheduled with Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Have you heard of any of the players that have tested positive? What sort of players are experiencing symptoms? Which players are experiencing an asymptomatic treatment? Are any of the players, I guess, being treated a little bit more strictly than some of the others?
Well, the Titans have been very secretive about all this. I've communicated with an agent or two, and I was told that by one player's agent that his guy feels fine, but he's still in the quarantine, even though he's asymptomatic. Vrabel offered up a few days ago that some of the guys did have flu-like symptoms. Most of them were mild, that sort of thing. The other part of this too is that comes into play is members of the coaching staff are believed to be part of this as well. And those are generally older guys who might be a little more susceptible than guys who are 25, 30 years old. So, it could affect differently a coach who's in his 50s as opposed to a player who's in his 20s.
All right, Terry, want to thank you for giving us a couple minutes tonight. I know you've got a lot going on down there, and you've got a lot to digest, but we really appreciate the fact that you were able to give us some time and some insight into what's going on down in Tennessee. Why don't you give a plug to where our listeners can find your work and where they can find you on social media?
Okay, the website is TitanInsider.com, just like it sounds. And my Twitter handle is TerryMC13.
Thank you so much, Terry. And we look forward. We look forward to possibly having you on in the future. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, so I mean, we got a lot really in a couple minutes with Terry, and he seemed that it seemed that he maybe was under the assumption, and it was going to be a question that I was going to ask him, but he pretty much gave me the answer in another question's answer, that a game could possibly be moved to the end of the season. It was something we discussed earlier. I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing at minimum a week 18 should the season be able to go on. I mean, the players, the onus is now on the players. The players have to do a better job at containing the spread, not just on the Tennessee Titans, but on the throughout the entire league, because we're starting to see every week more and more players are testing positive. And now with over the past week, we're starting to see it happen to bigger names. We saw Cam Newton over the weekend, Stephon Gilmore today, Corey Davis, and Corey Davis was put on the COVID-19 reserve list. So that is vague in itself. We don't know if that means he was one of the players that did test positive, or if he was just around other people that had tested positive. We don't know that because they haven't listed Corey Davis as being one of the players who had tested positive. We're under the assumption that he has, but we can't be 100% positive. But Corey Davis has been a really pleasant surprise for the Tennessee Titans so far this year. And I mean, this is a really good team that this whole thing has put a wrench, and I'm really interested to see how they're able to regroup from the turmoil over the past 2 weeks and push past it and move forward towards a playoff push, because this is a really talented team.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see everybody freak out today about the practice footage or the pictures in the high school. And Terry said it. I mean, I don't think a lot of people are very clear on what the situation is that we're dealing with. The timeline is very important. They had those pictures were apparently taken last Wednesday. And then on October 1st, Thursday, the NFL given them direction to either forbid them or strongly discourage them to have any football activity outside the facility. Two totally different things. as Terry said, if it's strongly discouraged, then they're acting at their risk. They're preparing their bodies to get ready to play for a football game. Look, it's a business. These guys are still going to practice. They still want to get in reps before they play the Steelers, a huge game on the next Monday or Tuesday, whatever it's going to be, with a lot of implications. Everyone is jumping on the punish the Titans. They have to forfeit, blah, 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 penalties, stuff like that. And the implications never end. All right, you forfeit. So what? Do you grant the Steelers or the Bills a win? That's just dumb luck that they ended up playing the Titans that week. They don't deserve a win. Okay, they don't play a game. So what? Do we go to win percentage now at the end of the season and the Bills get a bye week, another bye week in the middle of the season? Pay. CBS isn't going to see that money, or Fox isn't going to see that TV money. So are the players going to get paid that week? It's a never-ending cycle. So everyone wants to jump on let's blame the Titans. Like, no, this is just as much a league issue. The NFL didn't have plans set in place for this to happen.
Yeah, and I guess it shows that even though we all thought that they were prepared for everything, they weren't. And they weren't even prepared for the first outbreak, which they should have been. This one should have been the easiest one to overcome.
No doubt about it.
But it's proving to be more difficult than it should have been, which only leads me to believe that if it were to happen more to what if this happens to multiple teams? Because this is only one team.
And then we see the Patriots.
Right.
And it's never ending now. Now the Chiefs are infected, hypothetically.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know when Stephon Gilmore contracted it. It's not a whole lot of time between when the Patriots played the Chiefs on Monday night to Wednesday morning. Stephon Gilmore tests positive. It's not a whole lot of time. So you're under the assumption that he just hadn't he hadn't tested positive until he took the test on, which means at some point on Monday, probably either Monday or Sunday, he had tested positive. We just don't know when and how. Again, we still don't know. We're under the assumption that when it's outdoors, the spread is a lot less likely to happen. But this is a physical game. You're making face-to-face contact with some of these players, and there's bodily fluids being when you hit somebody, sweat's going to come off you. Saliva's going to come out of your mouth. It's bound to happen. So the next couple days are going to be really, really, really important for the Kansas City Chiefs, for the Tennessee Titans, for the New England Patriots. Those three teams, these next 2 days are super important.
Absolutely. It's what you just said is you hit the nail on the head, where you go down this rabbit hole of how bad this thing really can get. And, you want to call it irresponsible, whatever. Cam test positive on Saturday. Stephon Gilmore had been in close contact with Cam, but their entire team had tested negative for Saturday evening and Sunday twice before their game on Monday night. So business as usual. You try to play the game, and Stephon Gilmore comes back positive today. We just don't have the research yet of this incubation period and when we can give off the virus, even if we have it, and we can continue to test negative, as you said. So there's just so much gray area moving forward that it's a scary proposition for the NFL. When this happens, this is their biggest nightmare.
Yeah, and that's what scares me the most, is that we've had millions of people test positive. In this country alone, there's been over 200,000 people who have died, over 1 million people worldwide, and we still don't know nearly enough about it as we should. So again, I don't want to criticize the NFL for the way that they've handled things, but you can there's definitely room for improvement.
Absolutely.
just to say the least.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll get into my final week 4 takeaway. Then we will get into our pick segment for this weekend. My final week 4 takeaway is that the Green Bay Packers are probably the most well-rounded team in the NFL right now. They're in the top 10. They're in the top half of the league in pass defense, in rush defense. They're in the top 10 in pass offense and rush offense. When you're that good in all aspects of the offensive and defensive game, it obviously it leads to a 4-0 start, but it's going to lead to future success, because when a team is one-sided, a really good team is able to shut that side down. You just don't know where it's going to come from, especially on the offensive side. You don't know where it's going to come from for the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is in total FU mode this year. He's yeah, and I don't know if you saw the quote that he had. He was talking about his season last year, and he said that his year last year was considered a down year, but it's still a career year for 90% of quarterbacks in the world.
Wrong.
He isn't. I mean, what was it? 26 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. I think it was.
I think he only had 4 picks last year.
What was it?
Yeah, like he was unbelievable taking care of the football, but it's not. I mean, it's not for 350 yards a game,
right,
like we're used to seeing from vintage Rodgers. So everyone's like, "Oh, he's down." But really, like, is he?
Yeah, and it also makes you think about maybe Aaron Rodgers bought into the LaFleur system more than he was leading on, because I think a lot of people thought that with the drop off in statistics, it meant that he was unhappy. But you know what? They went 13-3 last year. They're 4-0 this year. That's an 850 win percentage over the first 20 games in Matt LaFleur's coaching career. That's pretty damn good. And Aaron Jones continues to be the most unheralded running back in the league right now, and he's doing it rushing the ball and catching the ball out of the backfield. Jamal Williams is one of the best. I don't want to say handcuffs, but the two punch of a 1-2 punch.
There's not much drop off.
Yeah, and which is why I think a lot of people last year were wondering, is Aaron Jones going to get as much work as we're expecting? Because it sounds like they're going to utilize Jamal Williams, and they've still been able to utilize Jamal Williams to where he's having success when he's on the field, but still giving Aaron Jones enough touches to be the feature back and to show what he means to this team. And I think aside from Alvin Kamara, he's probably been the most valuable running back in the league so far this year.
Yeah, and you see the supporting cast of Rodgers. Their O-line's legit, and they've played at a really high level this year. But look, no Devontae Adams for the past 2.5 games. They get Allen Lazard to break out the first 3 games, and the announcement comes before week 4 that he needs surgery, his core muscle surgery, after his career best game. So who do they put in? Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Darius Shepard, Malik Taylor, and then Big Bob Tonyan at tight end with 3 touchdowns. Like, who else does that besides maybe a very, very few select quarterbacks in the league right now? It is absolutely ridiculous what Rodgers is doing right now. But I don't think he's necessarily getting the credit that a Russell Wilson or a Josh Allen are getting so far, because he's it's his personality. It's rubbed it off the wrong way. He hasn't had a good relationship with the media. He's always been sour, and teammates have never really loved Rodgers either. They've never really fought for that guy. You never see these big free agents wanting to play with this guy. But what he's doing this year is like absolutely unbelievable. It's the first time in their franchise's history that they scored 30 plus in 4 straight games. Like what they're doing with that group is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still, and I could be totally wrong, especially by the end of Patrick Mahomes' career, but Aaron Rodgers is the most skilled quarterback I've ever seen play. Not saying that he threw the ball the hardest, not saying that he's the fastest, not saying that he was the most accurate, but you put everything together. His ability to extend plays in the pocket is unlike anything I've ever seen, because normally when quarterbacks have to extend plays, they're scrambling outside the pocket. His ability to move up and down a messy pocket and get off these throws without having to go on the run is just, it really is unbelievable. And again, like I said, Patrick Mahomes may end up taking that title, but Aaron Rodgers is the most skilled quarterback I've ever seen play. So we're going to get into our pick segment. As always, we are going to pick the Thursday night, Sunday night, and Monday night games. And then I'm a Giants fan, so we'll pick the Giants game. Derek's an Eagle fan. We'll pick the Eagles game as well. So we'll start off with the Thursday night football game this week. And it should be a little bit, but even though, I mean, last week's game we weren't expecting a whole lot out of with the Jets and Broncos, but it was actually a pretty fun game to watch.
Absolutely, there are a lot of points.
Yeah, there were. I mean, the Broncos almost covered the over under by themselves. The line was that low, but yeah, I mean, it was a really fun game. But we get to see Tom Brady in prime time, and I really hope we mentioned this on the fantasy show on Sundays. Just don't come out in the old pewters. Don't do it. Don't do it. and it's Thursday night, so we've seen that be the color rush night. Go with the Reds. Stay with just no pewters. And it's funny because Mitchell, as much as we want to rag on Mitchell Trubisky, the 3 games he started, the Bears won. The game that Nick Foles started, the Bears lost. But it's funny. I heard earlier today they were talking about the quarterbacks, and they said Nick Foles does not look good unless you put him next to Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah. This is an offense that is struggling really, really bad, and the Buccaneers defense has quietly become one of the better defenses in the league. The matchup that's really that I'm going to be watching the whole night is Allen Robinson against Carlton Davis. Davis has become one of the top 10 shutdown man-to-man corners in the league, and out of nowhere. He's done a great Keenan Allen. When even though the Chargers were able to put up a lot of points, Keenan Allen didn't do anything. And Michael Thomas, week 1,
nothing.
We've seen Carlton Davis really succeed, and he gets a tough matchup against a really physical big receiver in Allen Robinson this week. So that's going to be the matchup I'm looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. And that front seven in Tampa was a strong point of that team last year. They're still playing at a really high level with Shaq Barrett. Devin White's coming into his own. Levante David continues to be a absolute monster at the second level. The matchup that I'm curious to see is this Bucks passing attack is very, very depleted right now. Chris Godwin was elected out. That's no surprise today. O.J. Howard's out for the year. Leonard Fournette is doubtful. And Scotty Miller is questionable. They also are going without Justin Watson, I believe. But we saw the Buccaneers explode without Chris Godwin last week for 370 with Tom Brady, 5 touchdowns.
Five different receivers scored,
Yeah.
and amazingly, Gronk wasn't one of them.
Exactly. And one catch. The dude had one catch. And this Chicago back line is the best part of their defense. Everyone wants to talk about Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn. They really haven't. I mean, Khalil Mack's been hurt. Robert Quinn didn't play the first 3 weeks. They really haven't played up to the level that we were expecting. They will. I think they'll be closer to that 2018 form than 2019 down the road. But this back line, Kyle Fuller is a solid corner. Jalen Johnson, their second-round rookie, has been a beast. I think he's given up an opposing passer rating of 45. Eddie Jackson is one of the best safeties in football. Sean Gibson's a seasoned vet back there. This is a really good back end, and I think they've allowed 6 yards per attempt to opposing quarterbacks, 3 passing touchdowns in the first 4 games. Now, who have they gone against? Dan Jones, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford. Older quarterbacks like Brady, but I don't think they have the prowess and the skill in the perimeter that the Bucs are going to have and that they're going to see on Thursday. But they're really depleted, so I'm excited to see that Bucs passing attack against the Bears back line.
Yeah, this is a game that I'm looking. Right now, the line is set at 44.5. I would be shocked if it got to that.
I agree.
These are 2 really good defensive teams, and it's completely different from last week. It's not because last week the number was set so low because of incompetence. This week it's set that low because it's 2 really good defenses that are playing at a very high level. And 2 offenses, one offense that is struggling, and one offense is dealing with a lot of injuries. We saw Ronald Jones struggle with catching the ball out of the backfield. Shocker. And which led to, and what did I say on Sunday?
Keyshawn Vaughn.
I said Keyshawn Vaughn is a dart throw at minimum price, and he came through for me. I think they're going to start to utilize him more and more, especially if
no Shady either.
Yeah, no Shady, no Leonard Fournette. So, and if Ronald Jones continues to be a liability on third down, that's going to go to Keyshawn Vaughn. All of those snaps. I really, and Keyshawn Vaughn is one of the more talented running backs that was drafted this past year. This should be a really good game to watch. Again, and normally a lot of people associate higher scores with being good games. I'm expecting this to be a good low-scoring game. So, but I am going to take Tampa for my pick.
I'm tempted to take Chicago, but I'm also going to take Tampa. I don't like the way Nagy's offense looks, especially with Foles back there. It's just so conservative. They lose Tariq Cohen, who I'm not even a huge fan of, but at least he's a gadget guy. He's a change of pace guy to use in their offense. Besides Montgomery and A-Rob, and Jimmy Graham, there's really not that much there. I like the Bucs.
Yep. Sunday, 1:00, we get the Eagles traveling to Western Pennsylvania to take on the 3-0 Steelers. I mean, of course, the Eagles beat the 49ers because everyone's
I'm back in. We're going to win the NFC East.
Well, you're in first place.
Somehow.
1-2-1, and you're in first place.
Coach Genius for getting the tie now. Ridiculous.
So, I mean, it was such a weird game against the 49ers because, I mean, you have George Kittle catching all 15 of his targets, Jerick McKinnon having a really good game. And usually when those 2 things happen, when you get a stud game out of your best receiver, you get a good game out of your running back. When you have that sort of balance, it usually equates to a victory. But, I mean, that first drive, I think, really set the tone for Carson Wentz. He needed to get that confidence back under his belt, and he looked really good. He looked confident while throwing the ball, and he looked like that 2017 Carson Wentz when he was on his way to a potential MVP before getting injured. That's what Eagles fans have been waiting to see. This is going to be a rested and healthy defense, though, that he's going against this week, and they're not nearly as banged up as the 49ers were last week. So my biggest, the thing I'm going to be looking at is how does Carson Wentz build off of the success he had last week against San Francisco, against one of the, if not the best defenses in the league.
Absolutely. It was a very weird game, as you said. The first drive for me, for Mullins, I was like, all right, I actually think this might be a ball game. I was expecting a blowout. I think the Niners are better in every single capacity right now, even banged up. But Mullen, they have the fullback leak on the second play. Juszczyk is 20 yards open. Nate Jerry is completely lost once again, to no one's surprise, and Mullins just misses him by 5 yards. Throw you and me can make. Yeah. And he had a look in his eyes. It's like, all right, the Eagles might be – our D-line, the one advantage they had is the D-line played extremely well against the 49ers O-line. They were getting pressure all night, 5 sacks. Derek Barnett absolutely dominated against Trent Williams, which looks like a mismatch on paper, but he did great. But who would have thought Travis Fulgham and Alex Singleton saved the Eagles season in less than 10 seconds? Those guys scored 2 touchdowns. Nick Mullins with a gift of a pick 6 to Singleton. So they have hope for now, and they're in sole possession of first place for now, but I don't expect it to last very long. Like you said, this is a Steelers team that now had 2 weeks to prepare, and they didn't necessarily prepare for the Eagles last week until the announcement was made that the Titans game was canceled. But like you said, they're getting rest now, and that is an absolutely loaded defense against a completely depleted offense. Tackle to tackle, it's the only guy that's still there is Kelsey. They're expecting Deshaun and Alshon back in the next few weeks. Is it this week? No one knows. I would lean towards no. Goddard's not going to be back again this week. I thought it was going to be a bloodbath last week, but I really don't think the Eagles have a chance against this defense this week.
Yeah, and the Pittsburgh offense gets healthier. Deontay Johnson, he cleared the concussion protocol. James Conner had a week to get healthy. Benny Snell had a week to get healthy. This is a scary team, and it's not a good matchup for the Eagles. When a team is physical up front, it doesn't suit the strengths or the weaknesses that the Eagles have. So I am also picking the Steelers. At 4:00, 4:25, we have the Giants going down to Dallas, and I mean this could very easily have been 0-4 Cowboys against the 0-4 Giants. Giants haven't scored a touchdown in 9 quarters. It's been pretty bad. They've had these drives that look promising, and then there's always something that happens to stall it. It's never, oh, well, we got in and we just didn't get there. There's always one particular play that happens that stalls a drive and kills any momentum that they have, whether it be a drop, whether it be a penalty, whether it be a missed assignment, whether it be a fumble, a sack. The offensive line you would have hoped would have gelled a little bit more by now. It just hasn't happened. This is a make or break week for Daniel Jones. The Cowboys secondary could possibly be the worst secondary in the entire league. he needs to have a good week this week. The Giants don't have anybody waiting in the wings. They have Colt McCoy as their backup. We all know what Colt McCoy is. He's a career-long backup. That's what he's made a name for himself for a decade now. What he needs to do is he needs to have a good game in order to show this new regime that they can trust him moving forward and not already be looking to, are we going to be able to draft a Trevor Lawrence, a Trey Lance, a Justin Fields next year? Daniel Jones has to, and the Giants, the first 4 games, we all knew the first 4 games were going to be really tough. That opening schedule was brutal with the Steelers, the Bears, the 49ers, and the Rams. They only have week 16 in Baltimore. They haven't played a division game, so they still have 2 games against Dallas, 2 games against Philly, 2 games against Washington. They have Cincy, they have Cleveland. Again, Tampa on a Monday night is a tough game too. So 2 out of the final 12 games, you can really say, oh well, that's a tough game. Daniel Jones, this is where he needs to turn the page. He needs to have a big week starting this week in order for him to really secure his spot as a quarterback for the Giants.
I would almost compare it to Baker Mayfield going into Thursday night week 2 against Cincy. And it was only week 2, but it was a new regime with Kevin Stefanski. And there were already questions after that week 1 beatdown against Baltimore. And was it right? No. Was it hyperbolic? Were people jumping to conclusions? 100%. But you also circle that game and you say, man, if Baker Mayfield can't beat Cincy week 2, if he can't beat a rookie Joe Burrow and outscore Joe Burrow week 2, we got a problem. And that's how you approach this game with Daniel Jones. Do they have to win? No, I think the Cowboys are a much more talented team, but defensively, that's by far the easiest team they're going to play up to this point, like you said. If Daniel Jones can't show some promise, if this team has 3 touchdowns in 4 games, they can't do that this week. They have to finish drives. They have to get the run game going. The O-line has to be better, and Daniel Jones has to take care of the football better. If he doesn't, it's almost doom and gloom. It's, man, if you can't do it against the Cowboys, who are we going to do it against? So it's I totally agree. Huge game for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and as important as that side of the ball is, the best matchup of the week is going to be the Dallas offense against the Giants defense, which I think has surprised everybody with how well they've played. Again, for the first 3 quarters of the San Francisco game, they were pretty good. They just got gassed because the offense couldn't stay on the field for any consistency. They got totally gassed in the 4th quarter. That's when they gave up the points. They held the Chicago Bears scoreless in the second half of that game. Same thing that happened in the San Fran game happened opening night in against Pittsburgh. They held they were beating Pittsburgh for most of the first half. And then last week against the Rams, it wasn't until the last Rams offensive drive of the game that they really pulled ahead. It was a 1-point game with a few minutes left. And they held a really high-powered Rams offense to under 250 total yards. We saw them hold Darrell Henderson to 38 yards. We saw them hold Malcolm Brown to 37 yards. Henderson had averaged 120 yards each of the last 2 games.
The number Giants, 1 rushing offense in the first 3 weeks.
Right. and especially in neutral situations, they were, and it wasn't even close. I think it was like a 6% difference between the Rams and the number 2 team in terms of percentage of the times they were running the ball in neutral script games, which is what the game was the entire game. It was a 1-possession game all throughout. Patrick Graham has done a great job getting this defense to play better than what anyone could have expected. But now they're going against the probably the most lethal in terms of yards offense in the league. Dak Prescott averaging 400 yards a game, and now has a 5-headed monster that he can throw the ball to. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Cedric Wilson, and Dalton Schultz have all proven that they can be relied upon to whenever they're called, their number is called. So that's going to be the biggest thing. I think Daniel Jones and the Giants offense will be able to put up some points, only because that is such a bad defense. But and this is why I am picking Dallas to win the game. I do think that it still is a young Giants defense that may not be ready for this sort of firepower.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with the Cowboys, but Dallas needs to take better care of the football. Zeke's fumbled in 2 straight weeks. Dak has managed to turn the ball over each week. And that's when they get in the negative game script. That's when they get behind and Dak has to save us, and this defense is on the field the entire game. And it's obviously not a scary Giants offense the first 4 weeks, but you can't keep giving teams hope and giving them countless opportunities to beat you. They have to correct that, but I'm still going to go with the Cowboys on Sunday.
Yeah. So real quickly, let's run through Sunday night and Monday night. Sunday night, I think we'll both be in agreement on. We got the Seahawks hosting the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings looked much better this past weekend against Houston. Their offense looked to get back on track, but I think the Seattle Seahawks are coming off of a game where I think they were embarrassed at how close the game was against the Dolphins, and I think they're going to come out just guns a-blazing and look to put this game away early. I will be taking the Seahawks.
As well, I want to watch Justin Jefferson. He's had back-to-back 100-yard games. He's been an absolute beast against the Seattle secondary, who we've talked plenty about. I expect more fireworks from Jefferson, but I'm going to go with the Seahawks.
Monday night, this is a real interesting game. We got the Saints hosting the Chargers, which there's talk that this game may be moved to Indianapolis with Hurricane Delta looking to hit the area this weekend. We all know what hurricanes have done to that area over the past 15, 20 years, and how much it's affected the football there. We've already seen some college games get postponed down in the Gulf area. If this game is moved to Indianapolis, and it's funny because I was going to pick the Chargers even if it stayed in New Orleans, but if they have to travel and if it's going to move to a neutral site, especially with the Saints sitting right now at a 7.5-point favorite. I'm looking at the Chargers. I really like the way Justin Herbert has been playing. They are going to be without Austin Eckler for, I'm assuming, at least 6 to 8 weeks with a grade 2 hamstring strain. That looked scary. I mean, he tried to get off. He had to be carried off the field, and then he had issues with even getting onto the cart. Got a feel for him. But this is now a 1-2 backfield between Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly. Joshua Kelly's fumbled 2 games in a row now. Interested to see how that affects his timeshare in the backfield. I really like the prospects of Justin Jackson this week, but I think this is a week, especially if the New Orleans defense doesn't get healthier. I think this is a big Keenan Allen week.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also have a hunch. I feel like the Saints will probably continue to hold out Michael Thomas just because they have the bye next week. Yep. High ankle sprain is a lingering injury, especially for a receiver. I feel like they're in a decent spot at 2-2. It's a winnable game against the Chargers. I feel like they're going to be without Michael. It's very possible they're without Michael Thomas again. But it's the Chargers. It's still the Chargers to me. So, look, I love Herbert, but they're up 24-7. Josh Kelly fumbles, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers score 21 unanswered. This is a team that has lost the most one-possession games since, I think, 2016. And obviously that's not all Anthony Lynn. That's maybe half, not even half of those games are Anthony Lynn coach teams. But this is a team that you get excited about. And I don't even think Anthony Lynn's done a good job. Herbert's played really well. They have a lot to be excited about, but they just lose those games for whatever reason. And the Saints are kind of getting their swagger back. I mean, they go down 14-0 right away. Brees throws a pick in the first pass against the Lions. They score 5 straight possessions to go up 35-14. They started to look a little bit like that Saints explosive offense that we're used to seeing. I'm going to lean towards the veteran Latin team in the Saints. I think the Chargers are more talented in a lot of spots. The Saints are depleted. I think it's going to be down to the wire game. I think the Chargers are leading the whole game, but I feel I'm leaning towards Drew Brees to win it at the end.
Yeah, and to build upon what you had said, last year in one-possession games, the Chargers were 2-9.
And they're not a bad team. It's a team. It's a scary team to play. We saw it at the Chiefs week 2. It's a really fast defense. They have 2 of the best edge rushers in the game in Bosa and Melvin Ingram. They have, I mean, they had Eckler. They don't have Eckler anymore, but you have Eckler and Joshua Kelly. You have Mike Williams, who's hurt right now, Keenan Allen. I mean, there's a ton of talent on this football team. And Herbert looks way more than what I thought he was going to be these first couple games. I mean, it's obviously the athleticism sticks out, the arm strength sticks out, but he's poised. I mean, he looks like he belongs there.
Yep. One note before we wrap up: the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't know if you saw this, became the first team in NFL history to go 4-0 4 consecutive years. So hats off to Andy Reid. Hats off to Patrick Mahomes. That's ridiculous. It's a franchise that has really become one of the more stable and well-run franchises in the NFL, and it's amazing what a quarterback will do for you.
He is worth $500 million.
Well, it's a good thing because that's what he's getting.
that is a good contract.
Absolutely. So that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Again, make sure you are checking out backsportspage.com. Thank you, Backsports Page, for producing this show. We've got great content going up. Again, you can check out all the archives to the web shows and podcasts up there. Follow Backsports Page on all social media at Backsports Page. You can follow Derek on Twitter at Derek Mountain. I am at rstern33. The show is on Twitter at ZeroTechPod, and check us out on Facebook at the Zero Technique Football Podcast. Derek, we'll meet again on Sunday for BSP Sunday Morning Fantasy.
Yes, we will, and no pewters tomorrow, please.
Yeah, no pewters. No pewters. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Good luck.